Welcome to Impact by DIFFA Dallas, the official podcast of the Dallas chapter of the Design Industries Foundation Fighting AIDS. We'll share valuable info about the fight against HIV and AIDS, what our organization is doing to assist those in our community, and most importantly, how you can help us make a real impact.
Hi, welcome to today's episode of Impact by DIFFA Dallas. My name is Tim Garippa. I'm really happy today to be joined by Darrell Thomas, our YP president of DIFFA Dallas. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here this morning.
Great. You know, today we have some really important topics to talk about. So I'm happy to be doing that. We're going to talk through some challenging topics of today. But before we get into that, I think it's important to talk about what we're doing for our young professionals in Dallas and how YP enables DIFFA to be successful. So why don't we jump into a little bit about you, Darrell, how you became involved with DIFFA, why you're passionate about it. And then let's talk a little bit about young professionals and what they do.
Definitely. So I started volunteering with DIFFA about 3 years ago. One of my friends was actually on the board of trustees, and he told me about this foundation that puts on these awesome events, and we do volunteers. We work with AIDS service organizations throughout North Texas, raising funds and volunteering. So I was like, this is something that I need to do, something to get out of the house, meet new people. So I went to one event that they had, a young professionals program event. And the people there I connected with, I even ended up helping them when they were breaking everything down. It's like, this is a group that I really, really enjoy working with, and it's quickly become one of my passions over the last few years. And so last season, I should say, became the YP president and just have worked to help grow this program into what we have now.
I think YPs is such an awesome way to start getting involved with DIFFA. DIFFA obviously is a great, large organization, and for young professionals in the Dallas area that are wanting to start to volunteer, wanting to start to get involved in the community, but don't quite know how to do that. YPs is a great way to start.
Exactly. It's an awesome way. It was for me. It opened the doors to me to see what we can do, or what Dallas does as far as a philanthropy and helping out those AIDS service organizations that really need help and support, and helping those in underserved communities, especially getting access to medication, those that need access to getting to the clinics to get their appointments. So this was something that was really important to me. And over the last couple of years, just being there to help has been, something that's been important to me. So as we've grown over the last year or so, we've have about 40 members this past season, even though the COVID virus kind of shut us down for part of our season. But it was still a great accomplishment to have so many people wanting to help DIFFA as a whole, raise funds, volunteer for the events that happen throughout the season, and just make a difference.
Yeah. I think DIFFA and the YP specifically are such a huge support to the organization. I think, people can come into the YPs with fantastic talents, and they help the organization overall, whether it be what we can do for design or for, marketing or reaching out to the community. And, I really love seeing that support that YPs can bring in. But beyond that, how YPs are reaching out to the community, how you guys are doing, jacket drives, and how you're actually going out and doing volunteer events. Why don't you talk a little bit about some of the events that you guys have been doing and what you guys do?
Over the last 2 years, one of our signature events has been our coat drive. We call it our winter warm up. We do it every December, or the last 2 Decembers. We're raising funds and also collecting coats for those AIDS service organizations, for the families that they serve, that need the assistance during the winter months. So that's one of our big things. And it's not just our members, not just design industry. We see in the fields of marketing. In my world, I'm in the financial insurance world, so not necessarily design, but we have all these different members that come from different backgrounds and wanting to serve in different ways for DIFFA Dallas. I think that's one of the things that I enjoy, is just a different makeup of so many different people coming together for one cause and helping that way.
And I think it's great that, our young professionals obviously give so much to DIFFA. And being a YP also has benefits.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
so, discounts to, different different DIFFA events.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk a little bit about the benefits of being a
So
YP?
as a member, we offer a discount 50% off to the DIFFA Dallas event. So Burgers and Burgundy, our Wreath event, and the House of DIFFA members who join during the season will get that discount. Then we also have other kinds of opportunities and offers for our members. So we have social events that we host that are sponsored through different maybe companies, or our board members may sponsor. We thank you because you also sponsored one of our events this past season. So we do different things throughout the year to help not only the networking aspect of it, but just to grow and get people aware of what DIFFA Dallas is doing.
Yeah. So how can people be involved if they're watching today and they they say YP sounds like a really interesting thing? Where can they find more information?
If they're interested in joining or volunteering with DIFFA as a whole, then they can always go to our website, difffadallas.org. We have a page on the website, Young Professionals, and you can go there and submit your email and information, and we'll have someone get out to you to contact you.
Perfect. Yeah, I encourage you guys, if you are interested in young professionals, you want to kind of dip your feet into the pool of community activism, YPs is a great way to get started. Yeah. So you can find out more on difffadallas.org. But I want to take a little bit of a turn of our conversation and talk about the current day.
Yeah.
And everything that's happening, which our world is crazy. It started with COVID, and now we're seeing this fantastic movement around Black Lives Matter. And DIFFA has had a long-standing support of eliminating stigma. There's strong correlations between the cause of HIV and the LGBT community, and specifically the disproportionate effect on the Black community. We're in June right now, Pride Month.
It's Pride Month, yeah.
Pride wouldn't have happened without our Black trans community. And there's so much going on.
Yes.
So I want to hear a little bit of your perspective around, what's happening today, and where kind of DIFFA stands.
When we talk about what's happened in the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of people need to realize that it just didn't start within the last couple of weeks. Yeah. This is something that's been going on in the last 5 or 6 years as far as the Black Lives Matter movement, and as far as LGBTQ and Black and brown individuals being also involved in that movement. It's, as you said, they were one of the first people at the Stonewall riots that kind of kicked off this whole gay liberation movement that we see. So as far as our YPs, we have members that have been out into those protests, that have been voicing their opinions over the last few weeks on what's going on with this country and over the world, really. So I think it's really important that DIFFA as a whole continues to voice their opinion as far as what's going on in this world, and not just taking a step back. We're seeing so many organizations and companies also standing up for what they feel is right and supporting their employees or their members or friends that are impacted by what's going on, and police brutality and the systemic racism that's been going on for years in this country.
Yeah, decades.
Yeah, decades. Hundreds of years.
Right?
Yeah.
And I am happy to see that the stance that DIFFA National is taking and DIFFA Dallas is taking around, we have long been a supporter of eliminating stigma. And as part of that, making sure that we're creating an environment for everybody.
Exactly.
And it's not enough for us not to be racist, but we have to do more to be anti-racist.
Exactly.
We have to do more to raise our hand. It's not enough to claim ignorance of the systemic racism.
Right. I think being silent provides more harm than actually speaking out, because, as we said, this is hundreds and hundreds of years of systemic racism and oppression for Black and brown people. Right. And now, over the last few weeks, we have this spark, this fire now to do something, and to sit back and not say anything. To me, that's even more dangerous. Yeah. So with DIFFA making these steps to share that, hey, we're standing with our Black and brown members of the LGBT community as they not only fight for their rights of being a person of color in the gay community, but also on the other side of it, the civil rights issue that we're seeing It's awesome to see that.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about being silent.
Yeah.
Right. Because, I mean, there are people that want to be allies. Right. And I think we saw some of this in the LGBT movement.
Yes.
And I don't want to say they're the same because they're certainly not. But people that want to be allies, but they're nervous to say something because they might say something wrong.
Yeah.
What would you say to those people to say, you know, it's okay?
I would tell them to speak out. Yeah. Say something. Even if you're nervous of what you may think it may not be correct, but say something. Show that you are there to support. Show that you are an ally in the fight for equal justice. So I think it's important. There's you know, all kinds of books and information about, you know, what you can do as you know, a white person to speak up on behalf of a person of color. But I think that's the important thing, is just, if you see something wrong, if you see some form of racism, just say something and call it out there on the floor instead of just sitting back and saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe they said that. Well, respond to it. Yeah. React to it. I think that's important.
And I think there's so much happening right now where people don't realize some things that are racist because they are systemic in our society.
Yeah, and we've seen that examples all this week of different companies and the magazines that are releasing editors because of, you know, they thought something was okay, but it turned out to be racist. So we're seeing change in that way. We're seeing people stand up and speak out now, especially across social media. So I think we can continue to do that, and we're seeing changes. And as long as people continue to speak out, then we'll see, you know, progress going forward.
And I think there's an opportunity for people that haven't lived the experiences to understand and learn a little bit more.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm really happy to see some lists that have been published around, you know, how can we educate ourselves more, whether it be watching documentaries or docuseries or TED Talks and the books that are available. There's so much content available today around the history of systemic racism, around the history of our Black community, that anyone that doesn't know the history can go out and access. And we can use that as power. We can use that as a way to eliminate the ignorance within ourselves, so that way we can do a better job of recognizing unconscious bias.
Exactly.
We can do a better job of recognizing where systemic racism exists, because it's not just within the community, but it's also within companies.
Exactly.
It's, you know, it's within organizations. And we need to take a better job of standing up and recognizing that and pointing it out.
Yeah, I agree with that. And going back to the Black Lives Matter movement, if people are looking for a resource, there's always their website, which lists out what the call to action is. Even throughout all these protests, people are wondering, okay, what's next? Well, it's listed right there on their website. You just have to take the time to go out there and read it. And I think that's also where DIFFA Dallas can play into. Updating our website to share that information, as well as still calling out the disparities between access to healthcare for our Black and Brown communities, and those aid service organizations that are helping the underserved communities to get them access to the medication, the help that they need. And I think that's a great space where DIFFA Dallas can come into.
Sure. Yeah, and that's a good point. I am so happy to see so many of our beneficiaries, right? So many of the people that receive grants from DIFFA Dallas are serving the Black and Brown community. Most of them, actually. Yeah. And the grants that we provide are providing access to healthcare, are providing mental health services, are providing nutrition services, are providing transportation, right? This is so needed in the community.
Exactly. And it's not just, you know, I understand DIFFA Dallas is doing a great job to try to promote that, but we need more of those who are able to give to help those organizations. So I think it's really important that we continue to lift those organizations up, as well as DIFFA still doing their part to help promote those ASOs and getting the information out on how we can all help them.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. What do you think comes next? You know, I think one of the dialogues that we've had, you know, at work, where I work, is at some point, the news cycle
is going to end. Yeah.
And, you know, our America's CEO actually talked about, we can't let this cycle end for us. We have to keep the momentum going.
Yeah.
We have an obligation to our employees. We have an obligation to our community to continue to move this forward. How do you see us doing that?
I think for DIFFA, I think if we can continue to, like I said, just call out, what we see as issues, or calling out that blatant racism, or the institutions that have carried out systemic racism for hundreds of years. If DIFFA can do their part to continue to highlight those issues and call those individuals, those companies out, maybe not just DIFFA, but board members can continue to do that, then I think that's a first step. Having that conversation is a great first step, and just calling out racism as it is, calling it out. I think that's important. The next steps, making sure that the conversation related to the death of George Floyd, and the reason why for all these protests are happening, because of the over-policing of minority neighborhoods, and keeping that as the forefront, and reminding why the calls for with the phrase defunding police departments, and maybe reallocating budgets to service social and civic organizations. And maybe if that does happen in that conversation, then maybe funds can be moved to ASOs that need the help, ASOs that are trying to help individuals get healthcare, get them the meds they need, get them the food, or the whatever services they need. I think that's a great way to do that. So as long as DIFFA can find a way to be a part or included in that conversation of changing what we see as the normal today, I think that's a great start.
And I'm happy that DIFFA is supporting. I'm happy that they're out there being advocates, and I think that it doesn't stop when the news cycle ends.
Exactly. And one other thing I wanted to add is that I think it's also important that not just DIFFA, but other foundations and organizations, as the makeup of their boards, be sure to include individuals that also look like the communities that you serve.
Absolutely. So
make sure that's something that's key. And I think DIFFA is doing that, especially with the board that will be on for next season. I think they're doing great strides to try to make sure that the makeup of the board looks like the people that we're serving.
Yeah, you're right. That is important. And I've seen a lot of stuff on social, even in corporate boards, right? In major companies, talking about leadership teams and, how do we make sure that we're doing better from an overall leadership, whether nonprofit organization or for-profit corporations, making sure we're seeing diversity in leadership is important. So I absolutely recognize that fact. And, one of the things that I think is also really powerful is, how do we explain, or how do we talk to people that don't quite understand Black Lives Matter? Yeah. Right? People that respond with
all lives matter.
All lives matter. Right.
And that's right. All lives do matter. But in America's history, we've seen that Black people have suffered a great deal. And there have been institutions and the systemic racism that has been throughout since the end of slavery that we've seen, that has oppressed and kept Black people down. And now with the recent events over the last few years of police murdering Black and brown people, we know that maybe Black lives don't matter as much as other lives. And so that's why we're out there protesting. That's why we're voicing our opinions. That's why we're trying to seek change through our politics, our city governments, state governments. That's what we're trying to see.
And I think it's really powerful to see people respond and say, saying Black Lives Matter does not say that other lives don't matter.
Exactly.
But this is the problem that we're facing. And it is a massive problem based upon a whole history of things that have gone on, right? It's systemic in our society.
Yeah, it's ingrained in our societies.
We have to fix this. If we can fix this, it might actually fix some other things too. And so let's address the problem that's at hand. And that's what Black Lives Matter is about.
Exactly. And I think also people have questions on what are the next steps, what are the actions. And then part of that movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, is one, finding or seeking justice for those that have lost, getting individuals out there to vote. And if we can't change the conversation to get those people that have done such horrible things to Black people, if we can get them into office, but we just need people to get out there and vote to help change laws, change rules, get rid of some of these systemic racist institutions that can help improve all of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
I appreciate this conversation. I hope that everyone is having conversations like we're having today, because the conversations is helping what's moving us forward.
Yes.
It's helping educate people. So thank you for being
You're
here.
welcome. I'm glad. It's just like, let's keep the conversation going. There's still change happening, no matter if the news cycle changes going to the next topic, but there's still people out there today that are still protesting, still fighting for change. And on top of that, DIFFA Dallas is still working to help those folks who are suffering or living with HIV and AIDS, still part of that fight as well, to get those people the help they need.
You're right. I'm proud of the work that DIFFA Dallas is doing. I am proud that we are standing by our Black community, that we are on the side of Black Lives Matter. And I think that's important to say. I think it's important to say outright.
Yes.
So again, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Happy to be here. Thank
awesome. You. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Impact by DIFFA Dallas. We will talk to you next time. Don't forget to check out our website, diffadallas.org.